Two islands, both just off the coast of Fujian, two very different destinies. In the last video, I explored Kinmen Island, which, although just a few kilometers off the coast of the city of Xiamen, is administered by Taiwan. For today's video, I'm in Pingtan Island, again, just a few kilometers off the coast of Fuzhou City, also in Fujian. Yeah, this island is administered by the People's Republic of China. So I want to take a look at how these two islands are so different and yet the same. How have these two systems shaped these two islands over the past almost 80 years? Oh.
这以后这都是给台湾修的，这条高速叫京台高速，北京到台北的，曲山。现在目前就是修到平潭了。如果有机会解放的话，可能就是横穿过去，横穿整个台湾海峡。
就是这个桥，可能后面也是要到
平潭那边会接到台湾那边。
到台湾。 我在厦门看了，他们也在造一个桥，从厦门机场到金门，但是造到一半，可能金门就那边是
他不让造，
不让造。
现在只是到那个大墩岛，就是现在翔安机场。
嗯。
他金门也是福建省的。
嗯。
福建省是一个完全没有解放的省份，就是没有整个完整的解放掉。 就当时金门岛还有一个我们福州这边那个马祖列岛啊，现在都是归属于现在台湾那边了。但是像金门岛
，This spot we're at now is 68 nautical miles from Taiwan. It's the closest part of the mainland to Taiwan, as you can see. It's a very popular tourist site. It's also the site of a pretty large military base, which is just the other side of those rocks, but obviously not allowed to film and unfortunately not allowed to fly drones, being a military area. Says here that it's forbidden to damage any national defense infrastructure. So I guess there's a lot of military stuff here. Up there, I'm assuming that's some sort of listening post or something. Maybe they're trying to intercept, you know, Taiwanese naval signals or something, I have no idea. This up ahead will be the official closest point to Taiwan, which 68 miles, we ain't gonna see anything, but I guess it's more symbolic than anything. But look, it's pretty beautiful around here. I don't know how bad this wind's gonna be on this mic, but if you look behind me, that whole military area up there, there's a fence. Behind the fence, it might be a little bit hard to see on the camera. I don't want to go too close to the fence, but I can see little military bunkers and things under the rocks, much the same as when I was in Kinmen. But, you know, those Kinmen military bunkers were ROC. These military bunkers are the People's Liberation Army. Let's actually see how close I can get. There's no security guards or anything. But yeah, you can see, there you go, you can see these bunkers quite clearly. Up there, there's a whole load of bunkers all around. But at the top, there's some kind of maybe listening post or something. And here we go, there's the sign, military base, forbidden to approach. So definitely no crossing that barbed wire line. But yeah, it's interesting, you know, just a month ago I was stood at Kinmen and I could go into the bunkers freely. Here there are still a lot of these bunkers, but they're all closed off. Now my friend, whose wife is originally from Pingtan Island, actually told me that when she was young, when she was a kid growing up here, and her friends used to go and play in like the long grass, sort of around the headland areas like this, they often used to, as kids, stumble across snipers laying in the grass and watching out to sea. So this is the Monkey Island, which is where the absolute closest point to Taiwan is, which is this little window thing over here where all the tourists are gathering to pose for photos. See if I can see any more military stuff from over here just across the water. That's the military base we were looking at before. And as we were walking along, we saw various bunkers and things. There's a little lighthouse over there. There's some big, ugly, dilapidated looking building. I think that may be bunkers. Let's try and zoom in. I don't think that really helps that much. And then along the side, you see all the stream of tourists. Okay, so what we're heading to is the They've translated it as the concentric stone, but I think a better translation would be the stone of one heart. One heart obviously meaning that the people of both sides of the strait desire to be reunited. Make what you will of that. You see the stone turtle facing the sea that wishes to return. So there we go. This is the stone of the hope to return. As you can see from the map, just get from that side, you can see they've got this image of Pingtan Island sticking out of the mainland of Fujian with the island of Taiwan in the bottom corner. There's a lot of annoying, loud, touristy stuff here, just getting everyone in to pay for their photos. The Chinese love what they call renao, which is just like hustle and bustle, a kind of loud noise, everybody making a fuss. Obviously, as expected, there's 68 nautical miles. That's a pretty long way. There's nothing to see, I don't think. I mean, there is, maybe I can sort of make something out on the horizon. I'm not sure if that is land or if it's just cloud. If it is, then theoretically that would be Taiwan. There's another island over there, I don't know what that is, but perhaps that may be one of the other islands administered by Taiwan, like Mazu or something, because if this spot here is supposed to be the closest spot to Taiwan, then that island obviously must not be PRC administered. Well, this is the first comparison I think we can see between Kinmen and Pingtan. Kinmen is such a quiet, peaceful place, and you know, you just walk up to that beach where you're only like 3 kilometers away from Xiamen. You can see all the skyscrapers across the water, And you know, there are sort of little mascots and things up to take you photos and stuff, but there's barely anyone there. It was very peaceful. The people that were there pretty much just, you know, kind of took some photos and then left. Here it's just all about the noise and the hustle and bustle and the loud music and the loudspeakers. You know, come and get your photo taken, we can put it on a keychain, we can print it, we can frame it, whatever. Like, it's all about the noise and the hustle and bustle and making a big fuss. So that's very much one stark difference. But still, once we've stepped past all of that, it is very, very peaceful on this stone right at the edge, the closest point to Taiwan that we can get from mainland China. It's just incredibly windy, so I really don't know how this video is going to turn out. This will be a big test of my DJI mic that I've got here. Can it deal with this amount of wind? There's a lot of very emotional messaging about the wish for a return and things here. Obviously this is speaking to a domestic audience. You know, very few from Taiwan are necessarily going to come up to this point, and I don't think too many foreigners, Westerners, come out here either. So yeah, a lot of this stuff is really just speaking to domestic people. So you can see here, this is the wish for home, and there's some kind of bridge ahead with doves. Clearly some sort of monument wishing for peace across the straits. Let's have a look what the sign says. "68 nautical miles or 126 kilometers from Nanliao fishing port in Hsinchu, Taiwan." This design symbolizes the shared heritage of both sides and represents the collective hope with Taiwan for a swift reunification. Here's another monument to reunification with Taiwan. When the wind rises, it's a poem. Here we go, some more messaging here. Some more messaging here of various installments and art pieces, emphasizing the wish for peace across the strait. And another interesting thing to compare between these two islands is the different narratives that are told to visitors. When you're on Kinmen Island, a lot of the tourist sites are focused around this idea of Kinmen being the front line of protecting freedom. This idea that they were, you know, these old military installments where they were defending freedom and wishing to at some point take the mainland back and restore it to, in their eyes, a free China. Here on Pingtan Island, there is a narrative of a wish for a hopeful return, an idea that the people on both sides of the strait ultimately want the same thing, which is reunification and peace. But there is this implication, if not directly stated here, that there are nefarious forces at play stopping that reunification happening. See if we can get a little bit of that big military base up behind. Not really supposed to film, but what can they do when in a big tourist area, right? I mean, if you don't want your base being filmed, don't stick it right in front of a tourist spot. So, have a look at the propaganda sign there on the entrance to the base. It says that the motherland must be reunited and naturally will be reunited. This base right on the front, the closest point to Taiwan. So I want to just interrupt this video briefly to talk to you guys about a product that I use quite a lot myself. Now, I think you know me well enough by now to know that I would not endorse just anything. If I'm going to promote something, it's only going to be something that I truly believe in and something that I genuinely do use myself. Some of you may know that I also work as a journalist and geopolitical analyst. And having this line of work has made me acutely aware of the biases that are present in a lot of mainstream media reporting on world events. And as such, it becomes harder to know what's really going on and to separate reality from the narratives that are being spun. And so one of the products that I use to get around that is something called Ground News. Ground News is an app and website that combines news from around the world in one place so you can compare coverage. For every news source, you can see if they have a political bias, how reliable their reporting is, and who owns them. You can verify your information and know where the news is coming from. With Ground News, you can see what the media is exaggerating, sensationalizing, over or under reporting. You can see who funds each publication, compare coverage, and think critically about the information you consume. Go to check.ground.news/monkeystealspeach to check it out now. If you subscribe for my link, you get 40% off the Vantage subscription. So as I said, driving up to the 68 nautical mile area, you can see this big, almost abandoned Taiwan town. Apparently they sell various goods and souvenirs and things from Taiwan, although it's supposedly mostly derelict. The only part of it that's actually open is this great big one here, which this apparently is state-run, as in, you know, state-run by the Chinese government. A lot of the smaller independent shops that were set up in this whole area are all closed down and abandoned because Taiwanese people are just not coming here to do business anymore because of the cross-strait tensions at the moment. So we have some sort of duty-free shop. I don't know if you need some sort of visa, or, you know, normally to go in a duty-free shop you need some sort of like boarding pass or something. I don't know, let's have a look. Or we can just go in this little market here, see if there's actually anything going on. Right. Well, it doesn't look completely abandoned. There are actual open shops. There are people around buying stuff. Taiwan-themed town in Aotian. I love China. Let's go and have a look in this Taiwanese shop and see what we can buy. 你好. Oh, we've got a whole shop of Kinmen things here. Oh, we have a lot of, as I said before, Chinese people's favorite Kinmen liquor, Taiwanese whiskey, tea. Oh. 这些都是从金门岛过来的。
对，这个是按摩哪里酸痛用的。 按摩膏非常好用的。
哦，
贴膏
我刚刚从金门
过来。
过来，对，就前几个星期在那里。你是金门的人吗？
没有，我们是这边的。
啊，
你的中文讲得很好。
哦，谢谢。
在这里很多年了。
18年。
啊，贵不的，比我们还长。
没有。嗨，你好。你好。
参观一下。
我刚刚从金门岛过来，所以这些东西我都在那里看过。
你的中文讲得很棒。
哦，谢谢。
中文讲得很棒。从金门岛过来的。
啊，你们的口音也真的很像。
像那边的是吗？但是我们住台湾住10几年了。
啊。
所以口音有点像。那边看一下，那边参观一下，那边也是我们家的。看一下，里面逛一下。
现在那个船有通，
有，现在我们直接去金门玩都可以了。
现在你就直接
参观一下。和金门的酒有没有一样？
啊，一样的，对，都一样。
参观一下。金门的都是这些都是我们金门过来的，这个都是金门过来的。
但是酒速太高，我喝不了。
你喝不了啊。参观一下。看一下。你们一起的吗？一起的。看一下烟酒茶，看一下。谢谢。
谢谢。You know, it's sometimes hard to tell when people are speaking Mandarin, if they're Fujianese or Taiwanese, because their accent of Mandarin is very, very similar. There is some difference, there is a noticeable difference, but definitely those women, their Mandarin was very, very Taiwanese sounding. And she said that's because she'd lived there for decades, so, you know. But some of the kind of expressions and phrases they use in Taiwan are quite different. So that, you know, that's kind of what stands out. But yeah, as you can see, this place is pretty much just empty. I mean, as I say, it's not all like completely closed down, but it's not particularly active, is it? There's not really a whole lot going on, other than those shops that are open down there. It's, business definitely isn't doing well here. It's all closed down. I mean, it's the weekend. You'd think if these shops are still running, they'd be open. This shop is specialising in liquor from Mazu Island. Mazu is another group of islands just off the coast, not far from here, just off the coast of Fuzhou, that also belong to Taiwan. A lot more remote than Kinmen Island. I think the population there is only maybe 10,000 or so. Now that will be probably the next installment of this Fujian Taiwan Island series that I'm doing. I think going to Mazu will be very interesting. One of the things about Mazu Islands is that it's the only Taiwan administered place where, okay, this wind is getting a bit crazy. I probably shouldn't stand there, it's just concentrating all the wind. Here we go, that's better. Mazu Island, or islands, it's several small islands, is, as I say, has a very small population, about 10,000 people or so. It's also the only Taiwanese island, or it's the only part of Taiwan where people speak the Mindong, the East Hokkien dialect, a variation of Fuzhou dialect, as opposed to all the rest of Taiwan, which speaks Minnan, Southern Hokkien, or nowadays they just tend to call it Taiwanese. So having that, you know, completely different dialect, to me is really interesting, because what does that say about their identity? If essentially, you know, they're speaking completely different to other Taiwanese people. Well, I think here's a good place to see a bit of a comparison between Kinmen and Pingtan. One of the major features here is most of the buildings are made of stone, as you can see behind me. Some of the newer ones here, and I was thinking that there would be a lot less temples on Pingtan than there are in, just trying to work out the way to get across. I think I've just got to climb over. I was expecting there to be a lot less temples here in Pingtan than there is in Kinmen, but seemingly there's quite a lot. I know that a lot of the smaller temples and things were destroyed in China during the Cultural Revolution, but it seems that a lot of them have been renovated, fixed up, done back up, and now active. Let's flip the camera around so you can see this one. So apparently this is the village temple for this little village that we're at, for them to worship their ancestors. Their ancestors and the local god. You can see these things here are for the Yoshen, which is the religious festivals that a lot of the Fujian people do, where they take the gods off the shrines. The shrines are covered up by glass there and a curtain, so you can't really see the gods inside, but they will take the gods out and they'll put them in these carriages and they'll carry them around the village and the local area to bless all of the people. It's something you see a lot in Taiwan. You don't really see that much in mainland China, but here in Fujian, it's definitely something that's making a comeback, something that they're starting to practice again, reconnecting with their traditional beliefs. There we go, this is a slightly bigger local village temple. It's very, very ornate, as you can see. It's very similar, identical, I would say, to the temples in Taiwan, and that you'll see in Kinmen as well. And as you can see here again, we've got these carriages, which is where they will put the gods to take them around at certain auspicious times of year. See all the offerings that have been put out to the gods here. There's drinks, fruit, alcohol. That will be the local deity in the center, Tianshan Fu, so the god of heaven. I'm not too sure. Fujian has so many different gods. It's very difficult to know who's who unless you really, really go deep into it. These are some of the various guardians of the gods. These kind of fierce-looking protection deities. When you look at these gods, you can very much see the connection between Chinese folk religion and martial arts. I mean, look at the poses that they're in. They're very martial looking. This one here has got he's holding some sort of fan, and then he's got a great big pipe coming out his mouth, which comes through the glass, and you can see people have been offering this god cigarettes, seemingly quite recently. Seemingly this is a god who likes to smoke. And some more of these protection deities here, all very fierce, martial, warrior-like gods. So apparently this little Mazu temple here was constructed by a local, a friend of my taxi driver, and he worked on a boat in Taiwan for a number of years, and then when he came back to Pingtan, he constructed this temple, and he said the actual statue of Mazu inside he'd brought back with him from Taiwan. This is the shrine.
底下在里面。
哦，不好意思，我没事，你坐。
没事，这个可以放里面，你底下那个。
There you can see there's the little plaque there to say that the guy that donated this has contributed to development of both sides of the straits. They're doing some sort of ceremony inside as well, lighting some incense. 你说这是你朋友，他是造的这个供，还是这是里面的像？
他们家请过来的
啊，
请来的。他请完，他生意最好的村里。
啊。
啊？可以。
So right now I'm in Beigang, which is a local fishing village. It's supposed to be a good example of local architecture, kind of local village life here. So I'm gonna have a wander around, check it out. I mean, first impressions, it does feel quite touristy, but I think, you know, maybe if we get off this main beat where there's just all these seafood restaurants and tourist shops, maybe down these little alleyways, find something interesting. Yeah, when you come to places like this, it's kind of little back alleyways into the village. I mean, yeah, there's lots of little guest houses and things. You know, there's a lot more tourism infrastructure, I'd say, in a concentrated area, whereas Kinmen, a lot of the stuff was more spread out, and there was really a lot more just local people going about their local lives. Here there's definitely a much bigger demand for tourism. People have taken their traditional houses like this, you know, and made them into guest houses and things. This is an art gallery, an oil painting gallery in here. Yeah, I mean, architecturally it's quite different from Kinmen, as you can see. It's all these traditional stone style of houses. Kinmen wasn't really the stone houses, a lot of it was more, as I talked about in that video, there was a lot of houses that were built in the sort of Malaysian colonial architectural style there, and then there was a lot more what I would say a traditional Fujian style houses with those orange curved roofs. Here it's, as you can see, the roofs don't have those big curves on them. They're very much just straight roofs, stone houses. And that's a difference I would put down much more to just different geography. I mean, yes, the islands are very close to each other, but obviously the resources that are available, you know, the climate is obviously slightly different. And so that's given birth to a different kind of architecture. But, you know, vibe-wise, yeah, it feels very similar. Listening to people talking and going about their lives, the fishermen and farmers, it's you know. It does feel very much like time's been forgotten. It's kind of sleepy, slow life. I mean, I suppose one of the big differences will be for people living here is, you know, they can guarantee there's a pretty steady influx of tourists. Pingtan is unlikely to really be hindered by geopolitics because, I mean, there's a lot of domestic tourism. You know, Pingtan is mainland China. You know, it doesn't really matter how politics go, like domestic tourists are pretty much always going to come here, you know, as long as nothing drastically bad happens with the economy. Whereas Kinmen is really at the whim of the governments of both sides. You know, if they want to promote exchange and they want to promote cross-strait travel, then people can go. And as I said in that video, people from Fujian can currently go to Kinmen. People from other parts of China can't, but Fujian people can visit Kinmen. But that's just clearly not really enough to sustain much tourism. I mean, not that many Westerners, not that many foreigners are going to Kinmen at all. I think, you know, they get some Taiwanese will go there for a weekend trip, but it's very far away. It's at least 100 kilometers away from the main island of Taiwan, and so, you know, it's not the easiest place to get to for a short getaway. For sure, compared to Kinmen, you can definitely see this place is much more commercial, much more touristy, but also a lot more thriving, a lot more going on. Kinmen felt kind of sleepy, forgotten to time, but here the tourists are pouring in. Restaurants, all sorts of businesses catering to them, with local seafood and everything. And that way it's quite different. It's a lot more thriving. I mean, one other thing as well is, I mean, I'm showing you, let's face it, I've chosen a few spots on Pingtan. I'm not going to the whole place, and I wanted to come to this more old traditional town, you know, to get a sense of kind of the local flavour. But if you can see behind me, let me go this way, flip the camera around. You can see all the high-rise over on the other side there. That's one big difference, very big difference, is, as I mentioned earlier, infrastructure. Kinmen is noticeably lacking in infrastructure because, as I said, I don't think Taiwan really sees much, honestly speaking, much use in really putting much money in development there. Whereas here you can see there's a lot of this development. There's a lot of high-rises, big new apartment blocks. I mean, I haven't really filmed too many of them because like I say, I've only picked a few specific places to come to, but in the taxi window, driving along, I've seen a fair amount of that. You know, looking at the big, wide, new roads here, you know, that great big, impressive bridge coming in, all the wind turbines. You can see that the Chinese government has been putting a lot of investment into infrastructure here on Pingtan Island. Now, is there some element of perhaps doing this a bit as a showcase island to show Mazu and Kinmen, if you come back to the embrace of the motherland, this is what you can have. You can have this big, beautiful bridge, these wide, clean, you know, well-maintained highways. You can have these new flash, you know, apartment buildings. We'll give you all of the stuff that Taiwan's not giving you if you come back to us. Could there be an element of that? Possibly. I wouldn't rule it out. But it also comes down to, as well, the big question of what people want. You know, do the people of Kinmen and Mazu, do they want the big flash infrastructure? Is that trade-off for a change in their way of life, is it worth it? And so I'll end this video by saying that these two islands, Kinmen and Pingtan, essentially are made of the same people, the same cultural heritage, the same history, but they've taken very, very different turns through the 20th century. Forces that are beyond their control have dictated the direction their lives have gone in. But no matter what, they're ultimately still just people trying to get by, just living their lives. And I think that's the important thing, is for us as foreigners, as Westerners, it's always so easy to, sit there and comment and judge and say, this is how it should be, that's how it should be. It's always easy for us to put our own values onto these faraway places, democracy, capitalism, communism, whatever. But at the end of the day, you've really got to think what do the people themselves want? What sort of life is going to be the better one for the people? And do they view the values that you have as important as you hold them? I think that's a big question that we all should ask.